In our previous video, we looked at the schematic breakdown and the reason behind each component of the DelaliSense 32. However, designing a board is one thing, proving that it works reliably is another. So in this video, we are putting DelaliSense 32 to the test, validating its features and later comparing it with some popular commercial ESP32 development boards to see how it stacks up. Come along. To test the DelaliSense 32, I'll be following this testing sheet I developed. There are two categories, off tests and on tests. For off test, we will just be checking the physical attributes of the board. For instance, are things soldered properly and do connectors plug in as they are supposed to? And then for the on test, we actually run power through the board and check for things like 3.3 volts on the 3.3 volts rail, also attempt programming the board, etc. For the part of the video that does not involve a PC, I'll be using this 200 watts anchor power brick and this multifunction USB tester. From here we can see the board draws about 43 milliamps of current when receiving power from USB and idle. To test the current limiting feature of the battery charging and power path IC, I decided to charge this 21700 lithium-ion battery rated for 4800 mAh. I also soldered the JST-PH 2.0 male connector to this battery holder. I checked the battery voltage beforehand to be sure the battery charging IC did its job and charged the battery over the period of testing and making this video. I first set the current limiting switch to the USB position, which limits the charging current to 500 milliamps. This is for when you connect this board to a PC while a battery is attached. This time we can see the red charging LED is on. Now we have a current draw of about 543 milliamps. Notice that there was already a base current draw of 43 milliamps when the board was idle earlier. I would now move the current limiting switch to the 1.4 amps position. Keep in mind that there is a hard limit that allows the battery to charge at a max current of 0.8 amps. So the remaining current from the 1.4 amps allowed is to be used by the ESP32 chip and its peripherals. The battery is now fully charged, so we can see the current draw now falls back down to around 43 milliamps. Also, we can see the red charging LED is off. The battery voltage is also now 4.172 volts. So the battery charging IC works fine. Measuring the voltage output for the main regulator for the ESP32 chip, we can see it outputs 3.308 volts. I went to the Espressif website and copied this link, and then I opened my Arduino IDE and then went to File menu, Preferences, and then pasted the link here. After that, I clicked OK. Then I went to the board manager and searched ESP32 and then installed the ESP32 package by Espressif Systems. We go to the board search box, select Other Boards, and then here we search ESP32-S3 dev module. We select that and then click OK. Now we connect the USB to the PC and press the enable button once while holding down the boot button. After that, we come up here to the tools menu, and then the first thing to check is whether our board is selected properly. So we have here ESP32-S3 dev module, then the port. If you held down the boot button while pressing the EN button, you should see that there's a COM port now. So ESP32 family device, and then the next thing is the USB CDC on boot. We have to make sure this is set to enabled because we are not using a dedicated FTDI chip. We are programming with the native USB, which is already embedded in the ESP32-S3 chip. So these ones we leave alone, but here under flash size, because we are using an ESP32-S3 FN8, which means there is an 8 megabyte in-chip memory, we have to select the 8 megabyte version here. Down here, once again, partition scheme, we have to select 8M, and then for PSRAM, we make sure this is set to disabled because we do not have a dedicated PSRAM on the board. So this is also set to UART 0, and then the speed is also set here. And here we also make sure USB mode is set to hardware CDC and JTAG. Using this simple code, we will try to toggle on and off GPIO1, which is connected to the enable pin of the external V voltage regulator. This voltage regulator controls the power for all devices connected to the board. So we turn it on for 3 seconds and off for 3 seconds. The reset or enable button needs to be pressed once each time after uploading code to get the chip out of boot mode. This confirms that the board can accept code and it can turn peripherals on and off when needed. To test the onboard RGB LED, we will go to the libraries manager and then type fast LED. We want this fast LED library from Daniel Garcia, so we will install that. When it's done installing, we'll go to the file menu, examples, and then we'll scroll down and look for fast LED. So right here, so we'll go to the blink example. So this is the blink sketch. I have already made some modifications for our use case. Num LEDs is where you define the number of RGB LEDs you have on the board. Since we have just one, I'll leave this at 1. This part is to help turn on the other regulator for peripherals. We have the RGB LED on GPIO38. We do not use the clock pin because we are using the type of RGB LED that has only one digital input pin and one digital output pin. This is the part where we turn on the second regulator to make sure this works. Over here in this list of RGB LEDs, this is the type we have, so we uncommented this one. Also note that I have set this sequence to GRB, not RGB, because typically for this particular RGB LED, this is the sequence that makes the colors accurate. If we look down here in this loop code, you can see here that the light is supposed to be red when the RGB turns on. If we leave this, for instance, at RGB instead of GRB, this red output might end up being another color. And now let's go ahead and upload. Let's now try this color palette RGB example from the fast LED library. As usual, I've made the modifications and added the parts of the code that turns on the external regulator. I modified the original blink code to check the power path switching. This is to see if the board switches seamlessly between USB power and battery power. And I checked this by setting the RGB to red when the board restarts, and this stays red for 2 seconds. It turns the RGB off and then sets the RGB now to blue. If at any point while unplugging the USB and plugging it back, we see the red color, it means that the board restarted. But if it stays blue, it means there was no restart. So the power path switching works. The voltage at the 3.3 volts male header pin is also as expected. The ESP32 has 3 UART interfaces, that is the regular Arduino serial 0 and serial 1, and they are exposed as shown here on these digital pins. Let's connect a GPS sensor to serial 0 and later to serial 1 to see if they work as designed. I'm using this piece of custom code over here for the GPS. You can see I'm using a tiny GPS plus library. You can get this by going to the library manager, and then here you type tiny GPS plus, and then you can see here by Michael Hart. Over here I specify which hardware serial I'm using. So 0, I define the TX and RX pins that I'm using on the ESP32. Set serial speed. Over here we turn on the external regulator as usual, and then we go on to initialize communication with the GPS. The rest is just to print out the information that comes in. Here in the serial monitor, we can see the GPS process has started, but we have not started receiving any location data because the sensor has to lock on a satellite. And once that happens, this LED here will start blinking. And so we have to wait for it to start blinking. And now we can see the GPS location data coming in on the serial monitor. I will now repeat the same GPS data printing, but this time around on GPIO 18 and 17, which is TX1 and RX1. And so you can see that I changed this to 1 and changed these 2, but everything else remains the same in the code as before. I also changed the physical wiring to match the code. Once again, we can see the GPS location data. To test the passive buzzer, I use this custom code. So we have the passive buzzer on GPIO4, and then the rest of the code is as usual to turn on the external regulator, and then I let it wait for 500 milliseconds for the regulator to come on, and then I play a 4 kHz tone for 500 milliseconds and turn it off for 500 milliseconds and repeat. Let's now try something fancy. Same code as before, but this time around I'll be playing a melody using frequency changes. To test the fuel gauge IC, I'll be using this custom code. But first, we need to install the EasyEDA Fruit library. In the serial monitor, we can see it says the voltage is 4.179 or in some cases 1.80, which corresponds to 99.6% state of charge. Let's verify this with the multimeter. The difference between the fuel gauge IC and the multimeter is 0.05%, so this is perfect. To test the BME280 humidity and temperature sensor, I installed the EasyEDA Fruit library for it. After that, I installed one extra library, which is the TFT ESPI library by Bodma, which allows me to display the temperature sensor values on my ST7789 LCD screen. The rest of the sketch is as follows. I would include links to all the resources and sketches I used in this testing video in the video's description. To make the screen work, I went into the Arduino folder, located the TFT ESPI library, so document Arduino libraries tft_espi, and in that folder I look for user_setup.h, and I open this file in my text editor. In this case I'm using VS Code, and then I added here define use HSPI. So this is setting the type of SPI I want to use, and this is the hardware SPI, which is quite fast compared to the defined SPIs. I uncommented this to specify my type of driver or the specific screen I have, and then I also specified the order of the RGB. In my case it's BGR, dimensions of the screen 240 by width, 320 by height, and then from here I specified the pins I'm using for my SPI. These last two can be defined by the user, but the first four are kind of fixed. The rest of the code is just as it was and then saved. Then from here I went ahead to upload my sketch. To check accuracy, I set up this DHT11 with a spare screen and an ESP32-S3. I also set up a WASIDEV version 1.4 with an onboard SI7021 digital humidity and temperature sensor with an OLED screen. Compared with this thermometer, it appears the DHT11 is the closest to the 26 degrees being shown. I also found out the BME280 sensor has a self-heating problem when it's left powered up, so I had to put the board and sensors to sleep, waking at 1-minute intervals to show data and repeat. So while the sensor works, it's not universally accurate. To test the QWIIC connector port, we will use this MSA311 accelerometer module. It works with I2C, so we can talk to its registers directly, so we don't need a dedicated library. I would also use this custom code. In order to know how well the DelaliSense 32's Wi-Fi and Bluetooth antenna works, I will compare its received signal strength with this commercial ESP32-S3 N16R8. I'll use this simple piece of code that connects to my home Wi-Fi and prints out the RSSI every 2 seconds. Can you tell which one is DelaliSense 32? If you guessed the one on the right, you would be right. According to this website, the -51 dBm we recorded earlier still puts us between excellent and reliable signal, so there won't be problems with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth communication. Notice what happens to the RSSI values if I use this jumper wire to bridge and bypass the components I use for the impedance matching network. The signal quality improved and went from -60 to -30 dBm. In the last video, I mentioned the challenges I had with impedance matching, so this behavior is expected. For the first current test, we are going to start by uploading this empty sketch while the frequency is at the default 240 MHz and everything else stays as it is. This is how I wired everything up. From here, we can see the board consumes about 63 milliamps when idle by running at 240 MHz with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on. So we are running the first test again with the same parameters as before, but this time around we are turning the Wi-Fi off. Since we didn't initialize the Bluetooth low energy controller in the first place, we don't have to turn it off because it never started. But for Wi-Fi, by default it's on, so we would have to manually turn it off, hence this line here. The current dropped by almost half just by turning Wi-Fi off. We will use the same sketch as before. This time around, we will set the CPU frequency to 80 MHz because that is the lowest frequency at which the ESP32 can reliably process Wi-Fi related tasks. 80 MHz also drops the current consumption by at least 10 milliamps from the previous 34. So this is also good for battery powered solutions. Out of curiosity, I'm going to try to drop the frequency further to 10 MHz to see what happens. Once again, we can see a current drop of about 11 milliamps from the previous 24. I also found out during this test that it is possible to change the ESP32-S3's operating frequency during runtime. So you can, for instance, use 10 MHz to collect sensor data and everything else, and then once in say an hour, jump to 80 MHz just to post to the cloud. For the final deep sleep test, I'm using this sketch sample here and with the ESP.h library that comes as a part of the Expressive software development kit. And over here, I put the board to sleep. So with the board in deep sleep and only the RTC on, the board consumes about 27 microamps, which is really good considering it has two regulators, a power path management IC and a fuel gauge IC, which all have access to the battery at all times. Using the 4800 mAh battery I just used for testing, if the board stays asleep for at least an hour, which is 3600 seconds, while drawing a current of the 27 microamp we just measured and woke up for 8 seconds to post to the cloud some sensor data and draws about 230 milliamps, it's estimated that the board should be able to run for 8,939 hours, which is about 1 year. So this is really good for this board. Here is a list of things I would like to revise in the next iteration of the DelaliSense board. Please like this video to show your support for this channel. If you are new here, kindly subscribe to stay in touch. See you next time.